it's really great to have you here on our CLA coffee break. But before we dive into all the sort of nitty gritty and the exciting questions, I thought it would be great for you to quickly tell us a little bit about yourself and, what's happening in your current role right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. Pleasure to spend some time with you. I am the head of community for a fintech startup called Sequence. Sequence, the product is a financial router, which may sound like word salad to some people, but basically just means like we're kind of like if this then that or Zapier for personal finance. We make basically I'll tell you this little part, then we can kind of get back into it. But the gist of it is that your parents only had like kind of one banker, and now everybody's got like 15 financial accounts. They don't all talk to each other, so we help them talk to each other. Anyway, I run a community of personal finance enthusiasts. Tends to be somewhat product-focused conversation, but also a lot of chatter about optimizing your personal finances, from saving for retirement to sending your kids to college to getting out of debt. We have gotten a lot of love from the ADHD community because our platform is pretty visual. There's an opportunity for people to see exactly where their money is moving and under what circumstances. So anyway, I lead a community of people who are really just trying to figure out in an increasingly fragmented world how they can best take advantage of their financial opportunities. So anyway, I learn a lot every day, and it's never dull.
Awesome. It's great to get to know you a little bit more in the few seconds that we have, and also a bit more about the organization you're at. I'm really excited to dive into the questions, and I know you have a wealth of knowledge and years of experience behind you. So I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on some things. I'd love to hear first about a pivotal moment or a strategy that stands out to you, something that really fueled the growth of a community you've managed or of the community you're currently managing.
Yeah, so I thought this was a really interesting question when we kind of talked about it in pre-gaming this chat. And there are a couple of things. I think it's really easy to look at tentpole moments or like sort of flagship moments in the evolution of communities and go like, hey, this one thing happened. But I have some of those, and some of them are profound and some of them are ridiculous, and I'll tell you what those are. But I also think that oftentimes the whole thing about, I speak probably too often in analogies, and one of the things that I feel like a lot of community people talk about, especially when they're interfacing with the people that they report to, is that it is a marathon and not a sprint. Like I like to say, you can't microwave relationships. Like stuff takes time, and you really have to invest yourself in that. So all of that to say, my background prior to my current role included really early forays into community building. I was a very early employee at Yelp when that company was spinning up, and got a chance to work with some folks who've gone on to do some pretty interesting things. And so in that particular role, we had a guy in the community that I was running or a family whose house burned down, who were both members of that community. And the community literally pitched in and helped them rebuild their home, like physically helped them rebuild their home. And so that's a galvanizing moment that feels like obvious, but also the kind of thing that it's like a really sort of a statistical outlier. Previous to my current role, I was running an e-commerce community as head of a community for a company called Triple Whale. They're in the e-commerce space, and so we worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and agencies who were trying to optimize ad spend. Part of the overall strategy there, and this is a tactic as much as a strategy, was I would produce mastermind events for some of the for certain subsections of the community. And we had a guy who was so fired up about what he had just learned over the past 48 hours, that he literally went and got a tattoo while he was in town of the logo of the company, which is preposterous, but he did it, and and it presumably still has it. So those are two examples that are the kind of thing that you can point to if somebody's like, hey, what kind of impact can community have? Like crazy impact, like really over the top, massive, obvious impact. But I think where it's obviously where it feels like to me it can also be really powerful is just in the day-to-day interaction, the way that we celebrate the people that are contributing to our community now. So the community that I run now, obviously with the personal finance fans, you learn a lot spending time with these audiences about how they are as a collective. And what we are finding certainly among our early adopter crowd with the current community that I'm running is that personal finance fans, the ones who are sort of the most vocal community members. So if we talk about that disparity of interaction, the 1%, 9%, and 90% rule, and we can dice that up a variety of ways. If the 1%, the heaviest contributors among them in the personal finance space, those guys love to talk. So what we really try to do is facilitate opportunities for them to share, celebrate where they help us iterate and respond and overcome challenges. And then obviously, because it's a community, look for opportunities for them to help other people directly.
Those are all such fantastic examples that you gave. I can't believe someone got a tattoo of the logo. I feel like that's next level dedication.
In the company in the company Slack, there were two things that were happening. One of them was one of my colleagues was like, oh my Lord, someone's getting a tattoo right now. And then all of the responses were like, well, that's just absurd. And it is, of course, but also like really, really cool. And it's one of those things where it's like, that's another thing about the power community is like, I couldn't have in a million years said to that guy, you should definitely get a tattoo of this company that you don't work for on your leg, which is what he did. But it was his idea and he did it. And we had a professional photographer who gave us proof. Anyway, the thing was bananas, but also really interesting. And it's like, the other thing that obviously happens when those over the top situations come to light is that whatever it is that you have to prove to or remind anybody else in your organization about how important and impactful community can be, it's also like kind of just something that you put in your pocket as a win. Like I try to keep a wins folder of like, here are some cool things that people have said about us, or like this thing happened today and that someone found really helpful. But when something like that happens, it's these are weird coffee table stories that stick with you.